Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the M.O.A. broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got a fantastic show lined up for you today. It is officially Monday morning, and I'm sure many of you are listening to this on your way into work or after you've got to work and you got that first cup of coffee, or maybe before work as you're waking up and preparing yourself for the day. So we've got all kinds of good information. We're going to keep this one to around 25, 30 minutes or so. Not too involved, give you something to get you going while you have that delicious cup of hot Java. All right, episode 33 of the M.O.A. broadcast. We have our show highlights. Oh boy. Crazed hooker dispute turns deadly with an axe attack. Chirac is ready to explode again, folks. You do not want to be in Chicago right now. If you have travel plans and you are thinking of visiting the beautiful Midwest, do yourself a favor, avoid Chirac. It is about to get hot over there, and you do not want any part of that. A missing hiker doesn't make it out alive. And finally, another naked Bronco chase through Los Angeles. I don't know what it is with the Broncos, but they seem to lend themselves to police chases. So those are our show highlights. We got all kinds of good stuff coming up. You know what? Let's just jump right into it. I was going to get, for those of you that, let's see if he wants to say hello. I got him right here with me in the shop. Let's get Cobra. So we got a new black shop cat here. Cobra is his name, and he is going to say hello briefly. He loves... There you go. Okay, hang on. Let me put him... Let me put him down. He loves hanging out here in the shop. And the funny thing is, Cobra I rescued off the streets about a month ago, give or take. And he had a couple of brothers and sisters. His mom had just dropped a litter. And it's funny because at the time they would come by my place occasionally and I would put out just table scraps or a little bit of extra cat food for them. So they had something to eat. The streets here in the high deserts of Oregon, the mean streets of Chiloquin, also known as Chi-Town, can be pretty rough. So I feel kind of bad for them. Anyway, put out some food. Now at the time, all of those cats, including Cobra, would readily and happily eat any table scraps that I put out there in front of them. And the table scraps are the same thing I feed Bacon along with his regular food. Bacon's my dog, beautiful English pointer. And he's a real stud. Everywhere you go, people want to... If he was a human, he'd be a movie star. People just like seeing Bacon and hanging out with him. Anyway, that's beside the point. But just like Bacon, in the beginning, would readily and happily eat any table scraps you put in front of him. Now, fast forward a couple of weeks, living in the house where Cobra is eating steak, both raw and cooked, and all kinds of meat and other stuff. He doesn't even look at the table scraps anymore. He's just sitting there waiting for me to put a fresh piece of meat, or he loves fried chicken, as does Bacon and myself and everybody else. So anyway, that's how quickly they turn, though, from eating anything you put in front of them to now they poo-poo their the table scraps and want nothing but the good stuff. So, all right, let's get back to our story at hand. We go to San Francisco. This story comes to us via the New York Post. Suspected prostitute, 24, that's her age, allegedly, eyed in grisly axe murder of elderly man in his San Francisco apartment. I wonder if the person who wrote that even was aware of the pun. Quite literally, they put in there eyed, E-Y-E-D, as in looked at, in the grisly axe murder. For those of you that don't or aren't familiar with axes or don't use them or whatever, the eye of the axe is the hole through which you run the handle and so forth. So that would be a nice little pun coming from somebody that whoever's writing headlines, I would think, wouldn't be an entry-level employee. They probably have a good background in literature. They probably did get it, but I wonder how many people that flew right over. Or maybe I'm just being pretentious. Anyway, we go to San Francisco. A 24-year-old suspected sex worker is being investigated in connection with a grisly axe murder of an elderly man in his downtown San Francisco apartment, according to a report. John Tyler, aged 69, no pun intended, was discovered by maintenance workers on May 6, dead in his blood-spattered apartment at Hayes Valley Affordable Housing Complex, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. The victim was reportedly found in his bed and had been hacked at with an axe. Autopsy reports showed the elderly man had 16 defensive wounds to his hands, head, and face, and fractures to his skull and rib cage. Police recovered a hatchet, a bloody knife, 6 cell phones, and a blue latex glove. Wow, that is a grisly scene. You got to wonder what was going on. Were all the phones his? Were those from the alleged prostitute? Video surveillance footage from outside the apartment showed him entering alongside a young woman who wore a surgical mask on May 3rd. He was found, so he was dead in his apartment for 3 days. He was found on May 6th. The Chronicle reported the suspected sex worker left at 9 a.m. on May 4, and no one came in or out of the apartment until Tyler was found by maintenance personnel. So a building manager told the Chronicle that Tyler was known to bring younger women into his apartment, and she allegedly assumed they were prostitutes. DNA evidence collected from the blue latex glove and hatchet matched that of a young woman whose driver's license photo appeared similar to the woman seen in the surveillance videos. The 24-year-old woman was arrested in Oakland on July 10 on suspicion of homicide, but she was not charged and was later released. The investigation is ongoing. The murderer is still at large in San Francisco. Man, you got to wonder what happened there. I mean, it seems pretty, there's a lot of, you could make a couple of few obvious deductions, trying to process too much information here at once. I have a screen running on the other side of the computer here with new news stories coming in as we're doing the show here on Monday morning. I want to provide the most up-to-date info for everybody starting their day here in the U.S. If you're around the world, your day or Monday may be coming to a close already, but for those in our U.S. listeners, that's what we're trying to do here. Okay, well, you know what? Let's just jump. Let me get a sip here. Hang on. Coffee selection is going to be today after I finish with the show. Believe we're going to do a French roast, and we're going to run it through the French press. It's been a while since I've done that, and I've already got plans later this afternoon or evening to do cowboy coffee out here in the shop. I've talked about coffee before. I'm a huge fan. Coffee is a big part of I guess you could say it's a big part of my life, something I really enjoy. Even if I don't feel like I need a pick-me-up or whatever, I don't really drink coffee for the caffeine boost. I just love the flavor. And cowboy coffee is one of my absolute favorite ways to make it. Now, I've got some videos on my YouTube channel of how to do cowboy coffee. Most of these videos on cowboy coffee, they dramatically overcomplicate it. It is very, very simple to do good cowboy coffee with very, very few steps. Things like the extra drop of water at the end and all that stuff, you don't need to do any of that. I'll do another video here soon, and I'll link it into the podcast page here so you can watch it. But for those of you that are interested in cowboy coffee, it is very simple. It's very easy, and it is delicious. Done right, you have very little silt in your cup of coffee. If you just leave the last swallow of coffee in your cup, you're going to avoid all that silt, except for a little bit that goes down with the coffee and gives it an extra rich flavor, but doesn't stick to your teeth or whatever else. So very simply, all you have to do is bring your water up to a boil or close to a boil. You put your grounds in before you bring it up to a boil. I will usually pull it off right before it boils. When it starts to bubble a little bit, I'll pull it off and put it on low heat and just let it sit there for about 5 minutes. At about the 2 to 3 minute mark, I'll give it a good stir so that the grounds are all, distributed there and are all getting, soaked and moved around and everything else. And the flavor, the brewed coffee is now getting distributed in the mixture nice and evenly. And then that's about it. At the 5 minute mark, I take it off the heat completely. I let it sit an extra minute or so. And then if you gently just pour it into your cup, you're going to have very, very little silt. You'll see videos of people putting a splash of cold water and other things in there. Honestly, I've done it hundreds of times. Folks, I can't tell a huge difference. So if you can't tell a huge difference, it probably isn't making much of a difference at all. That being said, make it however you like, but that's going to be the order of the day today is a French roast on cowboy coffee. Now, For those of you that don't have access maybe to more gourmet coffees, although that's hard to believe in the U.S. today here in 2025, I live in the middle of nowhere and I have access to really, really, really good coffees. If you can use a much lesser coffee brand if you want to express it that way and still get fantastic coffee with French press or cowboy coffee. And French press and cowboy coffee are essentially the exact same thing. But with a French press, you have that little steel mesh that keeps more of those grounds at the bottom whenever you press the plunger down. But that being said, you can use one of my favorites to use for cowboy coffee is Café Bustelo. Fantastic coffee, very cheap. You can get it at almost any grocery store, almost any store that sells any kind of food whatsoever. I've even found it at like truck stops. The Café Bustelo, it's in the yellow can or the yellow vacuum seal package and so forth. So anyway, if you're a big coffee fan, you haven't tried that, give it a shot and let me know what you think. If you got any questions, info, feedback, or you just don't like the sound of my voice, hit us up with an email at info@gearconvoy.com. We always love to get suggestions for the show. All right, now we go to Chirac. Folks, we've been talking about Chicago pretty regularly on the show. I've mentioned before, I'm not going to keep going over it, but I love Chicago. Chicago is one of the best food towns in the whole country, in my opinion, for the type of food that I like. There is a tremendous amount of culture and just cultural richness in Chicago. It's a beautiful city when you're not being shot at and assaulted and whatever. We're being a little dramatic here, a little hyperbole, but you get the idea. They have by far, the most number of murders of any United States city, by far. It's not even close. So we're going to jump right in here. The Chicago Trump protest march. Thousands rally downtown against deploying federal troops. The story comes to us via Fox News. Now, if you'll remember, we had in our last week's episode, we talked about how President, and we're not going to get political. If you don't like Trump, great. If you do, great. If not, I don't care. We're not taking sides here. We're just reporting the actual facts. You make your own deductions and conclusions based on that. But President Trump did deploy the National Guard to D.C. It undeniably made a huge difference. You can talk about what the other political aspects of it are. I don't care. I'm not here for that. But we go to Chicago. Chicago is out of control. So they're having a protest. The Coalition Against the Trump Agenda. This is an actual organization, apparently. The Coalition Against the Trump Agenda, CATA, C-A-T-A, joined by organizations including the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights and the Chicago Teachers Union. I don't know why they're involved in this. They gathered at 5 p.m. at Congress Plaza Garden near Ida B. Wells Drive and Michigan Avenue in Chicago. The demonstration denounced what they describe as a racist pretext by Trump to escalate deportations and target immigrant communities under the guise of crime reduction. According to them, and I'll be fair, get both sides of this here, the Deputy Director Veronica Castro, Director of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, said, "Our job is to take to the streets, defend our space, and keep each other safe." You got to wonder, why don't they keep each other safe from all the murders going on in Chicago? Just a quick refresher, folks. If we go to the FBI crime data, in 2024, they had 581 homicides in Chicago. 2023, they had 621. 2022, they had 715. 2021, they had 805. Even if you acknowledge the fact that those numbers have been getting better progressively, 581 homicides in 1 year. You're looking, that's like 1.2, 1.3 a day. People are being killed. They had like 5 or 7 murdered over a weekend a couple of weeks ago. Clearly, there is a problem there. And instead of getting political or taking one side or the other, which we're not going to do, ask yourself this. Take all the politics out of it. If let's say you were on some type of disaster, let's say an emergency, let's say you were on a plane, a bus, a train, whatever, and it crashed, and you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, and 1.3 people out of your group are dying a day due to exposure, starvation, thirst, wild animal attacks. You're in the middle of nowhere in the jungle, let's say. If somebody showed up and had the resources and the means and the motivation to help you out, would you stop and say, wait a minute, who did you vote for? Is that really the question you would stop and ask? What are your politics? Is that the question you would ask yourself? Do you see how ridiculous it is when you look at it in that context? Of course not. You would be happy to be getting help if you are sane, to be getting help from this ridiculous level of violence that is going on. Let's jump down here. Kobe Guillory of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repressions said, one thing we're not confused about is that our city is under attack. Yes, by your own citizens. They are killing each other at the rate of 1.3 homicides a day. 1.3 homicides. And last year they had 2,815 shootings. 2,815. Okay, Chicago said the march is like any downtown protest, peaceful and organized. We'll see. I saw some videos of it on Sunday night. This news story is from Saturday. On Sunday night, it was starting to heat up a little bit. We'll see how it goes, but I guess they want to keep ICE out and so forth. And this is where President Trump, I don't know, you can look at it a couple different ways. You could say he's not doing himself any favors by kind of fanning the flames here. He posted on Saturday morning a post from Truth Social, which is his own proprietary social media platform. And I'm not saying he's wrong, but sometimes you got to wonder, if you poke the bear, you're going to get a response. He shared an AI-generated image of himself. An AI image. So that's an artificial intelligence-generated image of himself dressed in military gear. Dressed in military gear, styled after the film Apocalypse Now. Alongside, let me just pull it up. I got it saved here on the. So for those of you who don't know what a meme is whenever you have a picture and there's like writing along with it. If you're under probably 60, you know what this is. If not, it's basically a picture, and then sometimes it's an AI generated image, a computer generated image, and there's like some meme to kind of make a point, and it's humorous at the same time. There's a picture of Trump dressed up like the Robert Duvall character in Apocalypse Now. And there's helicopters flying behind him, and there's all kinds of flame and napalm and everywhere. He's got the hat and the sunglasses and the yellow cravat or whatever it is on there. And he's sitting there kneeling down just like the Robert Duvall character. And he says, the quote is, I love the smell of deportations in the morning. And it says, I love the smell of deportations in the morning. In the film Apocalypse Now, the Duvall character is kind of sad the war's going to end, but there's napalm burning around him all over the place. And he says the iconic line, now iconic line, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory, kind of deals. So Trump has this, I love the smell of deportations in the morning, followed up with the line, Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War. And then instead of the title Apocalypse Now, it's Chi-pocalypse now. So, that's Trump. He's poking the bear, and these people just take the bait and they go buck wild over. They organize, these protests and demonstrations and so forth. So anyway, they go on to quote the governor Pritzker and the mayor, whatever his name is. He seems to have a real problem with Trump coming there and the National Guard and so forth. He issued some kind of executive order that the National Guard and federal troops are not welcome there. Guys, it means absolutely nothing. A mayor, unless I did my research wrong, I'll be honest, I didn't even research it. I'm unaware of any historical precedent for a mayor to set some type of executive order that's going to for lack of a better word, trump the United States federal government. So, whatever. He declared publicly no federal troops in the city of Chicago, or as the president would say, Chi-pocalypse. Now, ironically, the protest comes as fears of immigration enforcement operations have already led to cancellations or postponements of Mexican Independence Day festivities across the Chicago area. You can't make this up. Okay, hang on. Okay, folks, you do what you want with that information. I'm just here to report the news. Everything I just said is almost everything I said is straight out of several news articles. So you do with that what you want. And again, we're never going to tell you how to think or who to support politically. Remain apolitical here at the M.O.A. broadcast. Now, the other day I mentioned last week The importance of a personal survival kit kept on your person. And I've had this conversation. I got one or two messages. I've had this conversation with people before. They're like, "What is the big deal? What kind of a lunatic or what kind of a nut is going to walk around with a survival kit on their person?" Guys, let's not get caught up in the nomenclature here. A survival kit doesn't have to be, we're not talking about like an Uzi 9mm with multiple magazines and laser sighting and all this other kind of stuff, that or a phase plasma rifle in the 40-watt range. We're not talking about heavy armament and extra ammunition here. A personal survival kit is something as small as, like I said, I make mine. Again, I sell this product. I don't care. Buy whatever you want. Just do something. I base my personal survival kits out of a small match safe, which is about 3.5, 4 inches long, less than an inch in diameter. It's a little waterproof aluminum tube that slips into a pocket or a backpack, and I can keep some. It's got a compass in there. You can put whatever it is that's going to be beneficial for your particular environment. Okay, that may be a couple of $5 or $10 bills. That may be a small flashlight. That may be a sewing kit. If if you're in an urban environment, it may be strike anywhere matches. Whatever it may be. You can go to Amazon, and for under $5, you can find literally thousands of different plastic or metal containers that you could build a survival kit around. If you go to www.gearconvoy.com, you can find my match safes and other products. I don't care where you get it from. The important thing, what I try and stress on this show over and over and over again, do something, because no one expects. Everyone always says, well, that's not going to happen to me. Do you think people that have a near fatal or a fatal accident, car accident, wake up that day and go, you know what, while they're having their coffee in the morning, I think I'm going to have a fatal car accident today? The people, like that poor gentleman that was hacked to death with an axe, do you think he woke up that day on May 3rd and said, I think I'm going to get chopped up with an axe today? That's not how it happens. It almost always happens when you least expect it. That brings us to our next story. We go to, and I'll tell you this, is something as simple as strike anywhere matches. I think I've related this story before on the M.O.A. broadcast. I was at a barbecue or a gathering where they were grilling food once, and as shocking as this may sound, everyone had their grills. There were only 2 or 3 people, but no one had a striking device. The one guy who had like the lighter, his was out of like those long. They have the long nozzle on them to like ignite barbecue grills. It was out of gas. And I forget, somebody else had something and it didn't work either. And we now live in an age where they no longer have these cigarette lighters in vehicles. So nobody had a way to start like 2 or 3 grills for this barbecue, this cookout. And it just so happens in my pack light hollow-handled survival knife that I carry with me, I had a couple of strike anywhere matches. Boom, that's all it took to get the party started. So it's not always about a life or death situation, but a small survival kit. And we're talking again about something 3.5 inches long and less than an inch in diameter. That would get lost easily. You could toss it into a purse, a backpack, whatever, a pocket, if you have like carpenter's jeans or cargo pants or whatever. So we go to Arizona. The headline, Arizona hiker dies after falling near Alaskan glacier. Glacier, for those of you that don't climb. According to the New York Post, a hiker from Arizona died from injuries sustained in a fall near the Mendenhall Glacier. I've been there. In Alaska's capital city, authorities said. Searchers found the body of Thomas Casey, aged 69, around 5 p.m. Monday, according to the Alaska State Troopers. He was last seen Saturday morning, and troopers said they were notified of an overdue hiker the following morning. He had not left details about where he was going or when he would be back, troopers said. Now, my point is this, and just to emphasize this, search teams used cell phone location data to find his body. Somehow he had wandered off a trail and then fallen and died. It's a very sparse article. Juneau police, in July, a Kentucky woman visiting Juneau on a cruise ship was found dead on the mountains near downtown after she didn't return from a hike. Now, we don't know exactly what the cause of death and everything else was involved here. But the point is, those are 2 great examples of people that probably thought they were going to go do a day hike or even shorter. If you've been on a cruise before, a lot of times these little outings that let you go on are like 1 to 2, 3 hours. These people the lady may have thought she was going to go for an hour and a half day hike or that's not even a day hike. That's just a quick jaunt in the woods. and she didn't come back. What happened? Who knows? Most of the deaths usually that you find in the outdoors are from blunt force trauma, meaning somebody falls, they smack their head on a rock or something, they fall into a ravine, whatever else. But the bottom line is, I seriously doubt those people woke up that morning and thought, this is going to happen to me. That is the importance of the personal survival kit or preparedness kit, bug out kit, whatever you want to call it. The nomenclature is unimportant. The important part is you're prepared to make it out alive. The mindset followed by the gear. So let's see, where are we at time-wise here? You know what? Let's go ahead and we'll dip into that. So one of the knives, and we're going to do a series on this. In fact, probably this week or early next week, and we're going to have a nice, probably 30 to 40 minute, give or take a little bit, episode on Jim Bridger. Now, if you're an outdoorsman, if you like bushcraft, the outdoors, hunting, and so forth, survival, you've probably heard of Jim Bridger. If not, we're going to do a great episode. I may do a video episode of it so I can include some pictures and visuals. And we've had good success so far with doing the videos through our Patreon page. And then a certain amount of time later, we make it available on Spotify and so forth. So anyway, you can go to gearconvoy.com, click on the M.O.A. broadcast tab, and find out info about the Patreon page and all that. But it's a great way to support the show. All of that takes time. I would make every episode a video episode, but guys, it takes so much more time. It's 2 to 3 times at least the amount of the episode to get it rendered into video, and then another 1 or 2x of that to get it uploaded. But anyway, we talk about knives a lot, and I try not to get too caught up in just doing knives or guns. There are lots of episodes or shows and podcasts that do that, but the Kephart knife is one of the knives that many people, when you find they're uninitiated into the outdoors, they see a Kephart knife. For reference, a Kephart knife usually has a 4.5 inch, a 4.5 inch blade, roughly a 4.5 inch handle. It's kind of like a spear point, which means it's kind of a wide, flat, blade that comes to like a spear point. It's kind of a fat tip. It's extremely useful and durable. It's just a fantastic knife designed for the outdoors. But most people that are uninitiated, they think of things like Bowie knives and, a sharp point and a Rambo style knife as what they should have in the outdoors. Now, the origin, we'll do this briefly and we'll come back to it and do a more involved show about this. But the knife, is named after Horace Kephart. I've got some information here in front of me. He was born in 1862 and passed in 1931. He was an American writer, librarian, and outdoorsman, best known for his 2 books, Camping and Woodcraft in 1906 and Our Southern Highlanders 1913. He was a major voice in the rise of self-reliant backwoods living and modern bushcraft. He advocated for practical gear suited for real-world wilderness use rather than heavy, elaborate tools. So basically, he was somewhat of a minimalist, and he was what made him probably the most enduring in the bushcraft world is the knife that he designed. And it had a blade length, again, of 4 to 4.5 inches, a flat or convex grind, carbon steel, but you could use any steel nowadays. All of our steels are far superior to what they had then. And basically, it was a slight drop point or spear point blade. Now, I offer this type of knife on gearconvoy.com called the Kephart or the Tackhart, but you can get them anywhere for a wide variety of prices and so forth and different options and everything. The neat thing is when people first see it, they're like, I don't get the point of this knife. I've had this conversation with literally probably dozens of people. They see the Kephart, it looks very plain. It doesn't look exotic. It doesn't look dangerous. Doesn't look combat ready like so many knives that are sold on people. Guys, here's the thing. Most knives are designed to be sold rather than to be used. They're designed to look cool. They're designed to make you feel like if I have that knife, I'll be Tommy Toughnuts, I'll be Rambo, I'll be Kephart, I'll be whoever in the woods, and I'll be unstoppable. Not really to serve you the best in the woods. Very, very different concepts. So anyway, the Kephart knife, one of the absolute best. It's got a very strong tip for drilling, for prying, for poking, for stabbing, and for penetrating, like if you're cleaning game. We have a model on our website. We have what's called a clip grinder, a false edge, that thins that tip out towards the end so you can use it for better penetrating when cleaning game or whatever. But the Kephart is an absolutely fantastic design and absolutely one of my favorites. Does it look as exotic and as dangerous as a Rambo knife or a Bowie or, whatever? No, it doesn't. But does it do the job better than probably most, if not almost all knives Absolutely. So we'll come back. We'll do an episode soon, like a midweek episode on Horace Kephart himself, and we'll go a little more in depth on that. But in the meantime, if you want to look up Horace, that's Horace Kephart, Kephart, you can find some great information, and we'll come back with you some more in-depth info on that. And we're going to be doing our Jim Bridger episode soon. We've also got a true crime episode, probably going to drop in the next week or two. I kind of pushed back, trying to get a bunch of things done. So, okay. Now, we go back. Where are we at on time? Yes, let's jump to it. We go to Los Angeles. Normally, you would think of this as Florida, but it's Los Angeles time. Here's the headline coming to us straight from the New York Post. Cops arrest naked woman after 4-hour standoff in Los Angeles with a dog in the car. Cops arrested a naked woman after a brief chase and a 4-hour standoff in the streets of West Hollywood Tuesday morning. Police pursued the alleged birthday suit bandit after locals reported an assault involving a screaming nude woman. The LAPD confirmed to the Post. The woman whom police would not immediately identify took off in a Ford Bronco with a small dog in the back seat. Aerial footage from the KTLA also What is it with people in Broncos? What? I don't understand. What goes on? And according to the pictures here, it's a white Bronco too. So for those of you that aren't of age, you'll remember the infamous, the notorious O.J. Simpson white Bronco chase of that's almost 40 years ago now, 30-something years ago. But this lady has it a white Bronco too. She is surrounded by these tactical vehicles. This is a wild situation. I don't know what got her naked. I mean, it's easy to say drugs probably, but who knows? We don't know that for sure. That's just a supposition, if you will. She took off on a Ford Bronco with a small dog in the back seat. After the alleged assault, police quickly surrounded the Bronco, but the woman refused to get out for almost 4 hours, and at one point hurled a hammer out of the car window. Mental health experts were deployed to the scene, and officers laid down spike strips to keep her from driving off. Eventually, she climbed out of the window of the Bronco, still buck naked. Officers wrapped her in a white sheet and took her into custody without further incident. An officer at the scene said the woman decided to surrender when cops threatened to bombard the car with tear gas canisters. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Hope you have a great Monday. Get out there, work hard, be safe. Remember, don't wait to prepare until you have an emergency. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.